Welcome back to Sabbath School Bootcamp. Sabbath School Bootcamp is to help you think creatively and critically about your Sabbath School lesson. This is week 4. We're going to be talking about biblical worldview. If you're not sure whether or not you want to watch, I should tell you that this lesson features a Polish poet. So, guess you can cross that off your bucket list now.
Welcome back to Sabbath School Bootcamp. Our mission is to help you think creatively and critically about your Sabbath School lesson. So let's get in the bunker and get going.
You may be wondering, I thought we were talking about education this quarter. What's this stuff about a worldview? I kid you not, I had this lesson open on my computer and I had to go back and see if I even had the right quarterly. I thought maybe I had found one from a few years ago or something. Between Sabbath and Thursday, the word education only appears 5 times in those 6 days. But there is a connection and we'll get to that by the end. Let me begin by saying that all of Saturday's introduction is just rubbish. I'm going to disappoint a lot of you by ignoring the Polish poem. The purpose of the poem about talking animals is to say that a lot of what people believe about the world could be wrong, which isn't at all the point the poem itself was trying to make. The lesson then gives some examples of this. The smartest people in the world for 2,000 years believed the earth was the center of the universe. And today, the smartest people believe that humans evolved. Ha ha ha. Okay, we're not going to go down that road here. I guess the smartest people are often wrong. Don't listen to smart people, okay? Who was this lesson written by again? College presidents with PhDs? People who are smarter than us and teach classes and expect us to listen to them? Okay. Look, I'm just not down with this rhetorical tactic of convenient smart shaming. I mean, you know who else believed the earth was at the center of the solar system? Dumb people. Men, women, priests, farmers. And do you know who figured that out, that it wasn't true? Smart people. I don't really believe in this smart person, dumb person way of categorizing people. I'm just trying to make a point here, okay? I'm going to warn you right now that this lesson promises much more than it can deliver. It's hard to talk about a topic like a biblical worldview in a Sabbath school lesson. When the lesson talks about a worldview, it's talking about a lens by which we view reality. The worldview isn't just about our religious beliefs, but our beliefs about knowledge, like how do we know things, our beliefs about the nature of human beings, ethics, origins, the universe, our view of the good life, the meaning of life, and so on. To use a rather poor but fun example, in some worldviews, getting pooped on by a bird is good luck. In other worldviews, getting pooped on by a bird is bad luck. Very bad luck. If you heard that a statue of the Virgin Mary was weeping blood, an Adventist worldview would be instantly suspicious. Why? Were you there? Did you run tests? How do you know what happened and didn't happen? Did God tell you what happened? Probably no to all of those. But you have prior commitments, intellectual commitments about Catholicism, about icons, about what happens when you die, about the deception of demonic forces. And so when you hear a story like that, it triggers all of those prior commitments you have, and your brain instantly knows what position you should take on that issue because of your worldview. When the lesson is done tripping over its own feet, it gets up to making a very simple point, which I will summarize thusly. We all see the world through a lens. The Bible provides us with the right lens. Here are a couple of questions to get your class talking. First, what are some ways in which the Seventh-day Adventist Christian worldview helps us to see things more clearly than those without this worldview? I don't mean just theologically, but economically or professionally, perhaps. To give you an example, I think the Adventist worldview helps us not to get too worried about natural disasters or nuclear war. We have faith that this is not how the world ends, and so we don't panic when something like that might happen. Second question, what are some ways the Adventist Christian worldview might blind us? What are our blind spots? Every worldview has them. For instance, if we believe Jesus is coming soon, maybe you don't care as much about the environment or planning for your retirement. Or maybe we tend to discount the importance of social change, or maybe it makes it harder to work with other Christians. Third, here's a question from Friday. The lesson provides some key parts of a biblical worldview, the existence of God, creation, Bible, redemption, and law. What other things do you think should make up someone's worldview? Sliding over to Sunday, we begin by talking about an Oxford University professor who has theorized that life is nothing but a computer simulation run by beings much more advanced than we are. The lesson is talking about Nick Bostrom, who has done more than anyone to popularize the simulation theory. The simulation theory basically says, look, in the near future, we should be able to run computer simulations with billions of people inside who would have some sort of artificial intelligence. And in this way, we could study human behavior on a large scale. Chances are someone in the cosmos is more advanced than we are, and they're probably already using this technology. And if they have it and they're using it, well, we could be their simulations. Let's not get stuck in the weeds on this. I just thought you should know where Bostrom is coming from. The lesson then says, okay, interesting. This brings up the question, what is the nature of reality? And that's a fun question to bring up when you only have about 100 words on a page to deal with it. The lesson gives us two answers to Bostrom's theory. Number one, materialism. All we have is what we see. No God, nothing. Number two, something created a universe, a god or gods or something else. And the lesson, of course, finds the second option more reasonable. It is, in their words, better than the atheist materialist view so often heard today. You can be an atheist and still believe in option number two, by the way, that something created the universe. Maybe it's Q from Star Trek. Anyway, it's just really hard to deal with this in such a tight space. Now, it gives us a list of verses, and among them, Psalm 53, verse 1. The fool has says in his heart, there is no God. Okay, look, this verse is hugely misused. David is almost certainly not talking about atheists per se. David is talking about the person who secretly lives as if there is no God. In other words, he doesn't fear God. He steals, he cheats, he lives as if there's no one there to hold him accountable. Of course, there are plenty of atheists, I guess, who meet that description today, but David isn't writing in a secular age. He's writing about religious people who choose to live as if there is no God. The fool says in his heart these things. He doesn't say them out loud. The lesson is just throwing these words like naturalism and materialism and foolishness as if all of these secular people out there are just morons. They're just so dumb to believe what they believe. Our theistic worldview is just so much more logical and rational. The lesson says, by all means, guys, let us critique atheism as Christians. What I absolutely cannot stand is ignorant triumphalism, this just beating. I do believe that a theistic worldview is open to greater possibilities, but if I'm teaching a class, I'm going to keep the hand on the leash here and not let my members just go off and take cheap shots at atheists and agnostics, all right? Moving over to Monday, we get to meet Leibniz, who asked, why is there something instead of nothing? The lesson offers us, as a response, Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. These texts don't actually answer Leibniz's question, it just relocates it. So a follower of Leibniz might say, why is there a creator instead of nothing? The lesson is right to point out that the Bible doesn't offer evidence for the existence of God. It just assumes he exists, which is why I don't bother trying to prove the existence of God. I do a lot of air quotes. You notice that? A lot of air quotes. The lesson tells us that the idea of God as creator is fundamental to a Christian worldview. I don't think that anyone would argue with that. The lesson seems to think that this doctrine of creation will protect us from evolution, but Christians who believe in evolution would agree that God created the biological spark that got the evolutionary thing going. The Adventist Church, of course, doesn't believe in evolution, though there are some Adventists who do. I think the lesson gives evolution a little too much credit for having, here we go again, destroyed faith in the Bible for untold millions. I'll be straight up with you. No one forced anyone to believe evolution. What happened was that many people came to believe it had more explanatory power and made more sense than young earth creationism. And you can lay the blame on evolution for that if you want, or you can also lay the blame at the feet of young earth creationism for not being as persuasive. I'm not trying to start trouble here. I've seen a lot of Christians bashing evolution or secularism or any of these other isms as if they are helpless lambs in the teeth of these monsters. Anyway, Monday's message is that creation is fundamental to a Christian worldview. We simply have to believe that God is the origin of our story, even if we aren't sure about God's origins. At the beginning of our story, he's there, period. Trotting over to Tuesday, we are examining another key component to the Christian worldview, the Bible, right? Where do we get our knowledge from? The lesson says, Scripture creates the template to help us better understand the reality we find ourselves in. This really brings up some intriguing questions that we don't have time to answer, like, what qualities make up a successful worldview? Well, I imagine if someone's worldview is that we all live in a computer simulation being run by cosmic chickens, we should probably ask, how do we know that? What makes that worldview better or worse than others? To answer that question very simply, I'd say a worldview is successful when it is able to account for reality in a satisfying, consistent way. Does this worldview explain the pain and pleasure we feel, the orderliness and chaos of life? Does it best explain what we experience? And that's all a worldview is meant to do, make sense of the reality we live in so we can cope with it. The lesson then gives a bunch of texts that should help shape a biblical worldview. I'm going to ignore them. When it comes to the nature of humans, the Bible tells us that we are sinful with a propensity towards selfishness, and that is bad. But we also are creative beings created in the image of God with a faltering desire for truth and good. And so this explains the reality of the experience of a war within each of us between good and evil. Does that make sense? I hope so. If your class isn't really getting it, feel free to spend some time on this and bring up some other examples of how the Bible offers us a worldview. You could talk about what the Bible believes is the good life and draw from Micah 4:4. Everyone will sit under their own vine and under their own fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. That's the life we are all chasing and the life we want for our fellow human beings. Waltzing over the Wednesday, we move away from creation in the Bible toward redemption. For Christians, of course, we are redeemed through the life, death, resurrection, and return of Jesus. That's the solution to the problem of human brokenness. In other worldviews, redemption would be something else, maybe promising technology or learned behaviors. The premise of Star Trek: The Next Generation was all about the future where human beings finally just decided to cooperate and pursue common goods. That's redemption in Star Trek, I guess. The lesson makes a good point at the bottom of the page where it uses John 1 verse 3 to connect creation and redemption together. There is a beautiful interrelatedness there as one leads to the other. Tunneling over to Thursday, we're wrapping up our talk about worldviews by taking on morality. The lesson makes the point that real education, education, that's what this quarter is about, guys, is about educating people morally as well as intellectually. Or to just sum all of this up, a major objective of good education is to help students develop a biblical, robust worldview, help them think through these issues. First, to study the Bible. Second, to take that study out into the real world, the laboratory of life, and see if it survives. Doesn't matter how spiritually marvelous an idea is, if it doesn't accurately describe the reality we are living in, then it needs to be tweaked. Okay, you can read the Bible and come away thinking that God only rewards the pious while the wicked always suffer. And you can find that view in Psalms and Proverbs. But then you live your life and you find out that some really good people went through some hard stuff. Does that mean they were secretly wicked? Maybe, maybe not. Because then you find the story of Job and you realize, sometimes bad things do happen to good people. And this is the process that we use to work out our worldviews. All right, that's all the time I got for this week. So class dismissed. We'll see you next week.